Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the first talk of the day, where Nunudzai will be talking about harnessing the power of community, lessons from speedrunning for the Python ecosystem and beyond. But before we start, just a quick announcement. After this talk, there'll be another talk by our platinum sponsor. So please stay seated while they break down the walls so everyone can see our speaker. It'll just take a couple of minutes. But over to our speaker.
All right, so I hope you guys can hear me clearly. Now, raise your hand if you ever played a game. Mobile, PC, console, anything in between. Okay, that's almost everyone. Now keep your hand up if you've ever completed a speed run of a game. Okay, few hands. So for those of you with your hands down, you're about to discover a world powered by the pursuit of perfection, the pursuit of excellence, all in the name of playing games as fast as possible. That's what speedrunning is, but on the surface. When we talk about speedrunning and when we look into it, you realize that there are lessons we can learn that can be applied to all of our industries, not just the PyCon ecosystem and beyond, which is why my talk is on harnessing the power of community, lessons from speedrunning for the PyCon ecosystem and beyond. My name is Nunudzai, but I'm affectionately known as Nunu. I'm a cybersecurity professional, community organizer, and public speaker. And as you can see, I love pins. So if there are any of you who feel like giving me a pin, if you have too many, my hands are wide open. Now, on the surface, speedrunning is the act of completing video games or games as fast as possible. And usually, there are certain strategies used, right, that can expedite gameplay. So for you to complete a game as fast as possible, you need to master it. So for you to master it, you need to dissect it, you need to conquer it, you need to know the ins and the outs, right? So the speedrunning community isn't just about playing games, it's about mastering them. So for this talk, I'm going to focus on three types of games, right? We have platformer, dungeon crawler, and open world. So for platformer, you're on a platform, you jump onto another platform and you avoid enemies. So you can think of games like Super Mario. For dungeon crawlers, you have a health bar, there are enemies, and you collect loot or some sort of reward. Then for open world games, it's more like a non-linear type of game where it tries to simulate the real world. So in this case, for open world, think of games like GTA, Watch Dogs, or Skyrim. Then for the dungeon crawler, there's a game like Hades, which I'll talk about a lot more. Now, what makes a speedrun successful? Number one, you need to master the game mechanics. You need to know your character, right? Do you have any special moves? Do you have any cooldowns? Or like, are there any power-ups you can collect? You need to know your character. And it's crucial because when you know your character, you know exactly how to maneuver, as well as the physics engine. So in games and in real life, physics is important. So you have things like momentum, you have things like gravity, and you need to comprehend how they work. For example, if you want to clear a jump, you need to time it perfectly. So if you're too close to the ledge, you fall. But you need to be at the right point where your momentum is just enough to get you over the edge. Number two, games have enemies. Enemies can be avoided or enemies can be fought. And when you're fighting an enemy, you can play around with it. You can hide behind a certain object and the enemy can't attack you because the object is absorbing damage. For games, I discovered that if there are two types of enemies, like a long range enemy like an archer and a short range of melee enemy, if you're in the right spot and they attack at the same time and you dodge, they can actually harm each other with the attacks, which is something really cool when you're playing a game and you execute it. And it's a way you can be successful at speedrunning, as well as the most effective one is a quick defeat. In games, there are bosses. So bosses always have a big health bar. So imagine you use all your special moves, all your power-ups, all your loot and everything, and the boss is down, only to realize that it has a second phase. And this is really common. So if you don't plan your game properly, and the boss is like 5 phases, you lose, thinking that, oh, I beat the boss. But the one thing I hate about the next phases is that the music gets more intense. The health bar is bigger. The damage is more that the enemy deals, and they take less damage. So this is all about the enemy. And the last thing are the level layouts. Certain levels have shortcuts. And if you take a shortcut, it means you save time. As well as you can practice certain segments. Like if a game is 10 levels and you know level 3 is like the hardest and it's taking more time, you can focus on level 3. That way you can beat the game in record time. With all this, I said, hey, let me give it a shot. So I tried to speedrun this game called Hades. It's a 2020 dungeon crawler game developed and published by Supergiant Games. So at first, I thought I was pretty good. Completed the game in 45 minutes. And I cut the time down to 25 minutes. I was proud of myself. And when you're proud of yourself, you show off. So I found this website called speedrun.com. It's basically the GitHub of speedruns, where people share stats, they share their runs, 1.5 million users, 34,000 plus games. So I said, if there's any place I'm going to show off, it's going to be here. And then I looked at the leaderboard and I said, what? The top 500 people finished in under 10 minutes. And the next 500 people finished in under 20 minutes. So if I were to tally out my performance, I would be in 1,876th place. It's a fancy way of saying I would be last place. So I asked myself, where am I going wrong? So on the site, you see there's a leaderboard section, but there are other sections, guides, resources, and forums. Someone made a 20-page document on the weapons, what weapon to choose, different enemies, the strengths and the weaknesses. And that's just one guide. There are 15 guides, 22 resources. It's as long as a report. So I'm going through this and I said, wow, I am impressed with the knowledge sharing, right? They take knowledge sharing to a level that's so surprising. And it's people like you and me who just play games, right? They release documentation, right? And at the heart of speedrunning is collaboration and shared learning. Because if I try something and it doesn't work, I'm going to share it and say, don't do this, but do this instead. As well as live streaming. The community is so transparent that someone will live stream and will have an app to screen capture all the buttons they're pressing, and you can watch in real time how they defeat the boss from first phase to second phase and to third phase and so on. Now, my run had a missing ingredient. I knew all the basics, but there was a missing ingredient. A glitch. So a glitch is an unintended behavior or a bug that occurs within a game's code. But a glitch can happen in any type of application, right? It's not just for games. So, because games have a lot of moving parts, right? You have the physics engine, you have the AI of the enemies, of other characters. Those moving parts might not come together properly. They might not interact properly. So there could be some inconsistencies within the interaction, or there could be programming oversights. And when you look at examples of glitches that gamers use, you'll be surprised. So, in a game, or in some games, you need to defeat a mini-boss and they drop loot. It could be a spell, a potion, or a sword, right? And that loot helps you further on because it makes your attack faster, your health bar bigger, so it helps you in the game. But with sequence breaking, you get the reward without the effort, which means your game is a lot easier, a lot sooner, right? Another example is the backwards long jump in Super Mario 64. And I'm sure this game was made way before I was born. So imagine people are still speedrunning games that are this old, right? So remember I mentioned the physics engine, but in Super Mario 64, there is an exploit that that's on the jumping mechanism. Because when you jump backwards, there's no limit on how fast you can go. So imagine how fast it would be to go up a flight of stairs backwards in a game. right? So this means you cut down on a lot more time, as well as the accelerated back hopping technique. It uses the same exploit, because for some reason, when you jump forward, you get momentum, but when you jump backwards, you get more momentum, right? Which means speed. Now, with that being said, what are some lessons for the Python community? The first lesson is of rigorous testing. A lot of the bugs or the exploits being used are in games. And games go through testing. They go through beta testing. They go through alpha testing and so on, even play testing. But if a speedrunner can uncover bugs in games that the developers didn't know existed, we need more rigorous testing strategies. An example I can give you is of the case of Myth 2. So Myth 1 was released and the audience loved it. It was a great game. And the dev team said, we did well. Let's capitalize on the success of this game. What we'll do, we'll rush the release of the sequel. And they did it. It was released. People loved it, but when they were uninstalling the game, it would wipe your drive. So imagine if you downloaded it on your work computer. What are you going to tell your boss? Or your investors or whoever, right? And it was an indie dev team. They rushed the production of the game and they released it. So I assume they were overworked. Now they need to fix this mistake. So on top of being overworked, they're going to be overworked twofold. So these are the dangers of releasing software, right? Or rushing, all because we want to make money. Because it doesn't just hurt our users, but our teams, our developers, right? The people who we're trying to make happy. So we need to incorporate playtesting early and often and use a speedrunner inclusive approach. The way speedrunners play games is that they put games through a stress test, as I like to call it. As they're button mashing, every press or every button mash or combination is timed and it has to be just right. Because if you miss it, you gotta start again. You won't finish the game in time. So speedrunners test games under pressure because they simulate a high stakes environment that normal play testing or beta testing doesn't usually do. Because in usual beta testing, we say, does this game work? Does the character move? Cool. So the game works, right? So we need a testing strategy or testing process that is more vigorous and that includes speedrunners. Now, when we're looking at cybersecurity, we can apply the way speedrunners speedrun games as well. Video gamers who exploit glitches in games can help experts better understand buggy software, right? As according to the University of Bristol. So we can better understand software just by finding glitches in games. So my challenge is the traditional model of security focuses on, okay, let's look for vulnerabilities, let's patch it, but why don't we look for bugs, those unintended, right, execution of code or unintended actions within our games or our applications and see how we can exploit them. Because a lot of times there have been bugs in the wild. In Sims 3, the players reported instances of save file corruption, right? So imagine if you had a stressful day and you just want to play a game and the game is not working. So the tool you use to de-stress you is even stressing you more. I would be frustrated. But data file corruption in a game can help us understand the data corruption issues within other areas, right? Not just in games, but within our different types of software that we develop and release. The discovery of arbitrary code execution in Paper Mario and some Pokemon games. So arbitrary code execution just means I can execute any code within a certain application. So the sky's the limit. If I'm good at writing code, I can do anything I want. But that means if I'm an attacker, I can also do anything I want. And it's just through a game. But we need to close that hole, right? A game can be an avenue for attack, right? Another example that was more devastating, I would say, was the log4j or the log4 shell. right? So essentially, it was a vulnerability in Java, and it existed for years. And within the Minecraft community, one guy said, you know what, I'm gonna pull a prank on my friend. I'm gonna hijack their computer. It was that devastating. And as a cybersecurity professional, that would be my dream. You know, I would love to scare my friends so they see how important it is to secure their applications. So, watch out. I'm lurking. Now, a solution we could do is to have bug bounty programs, but for game mechanics, where users look for bugs, right, within the game mechanics that could be exploited, and they could be paid for it. I know in cybersecurity, or like in general security, we have what's known as vulnerability disclosure programs, where we pay people to discover bugs within our applications. But let's do that for game mechanics. And let's have community-driven solutions. Because to be honest, a game I love is Skyrim. And it's developed by Bethesda Studios. They have a reputation for releasing buggy games. So I'm never going to say, hey, Bethesda, this game is buggy. I'm going on to Reddit. I'm going on to a community of people that I know look out for each other. Because I trust them that much. Even though it's a stranger, I trust a stranger on Reddit more than devs from an established company. It doesn't make sense when I say it out loud, but hey, it works for me. So we need community-driven solutions where the community comes together, not just for the betterment of the gaming experience, but to increase and enhance overall software quality. Now, let's look beyond the Python ecosystem or the Python community. There's an important lesson that the speedrunning community can learn, known as the corrupted blood incident. So in the world of Warcraft, there was this incident known as the corrupted blood incident. It started with a debuff. So a debuff is usually a temporary effect that makes your character weaker, right? It's usually negative. It's temporary. So examples could be slower health, regeneration, weakness to poison, slower movement, right? So within the battle, it should wear off. But it didn't wear off. It spread. Sound familiar? It spread to towns. Sound familiar? People thought that, hey, my character would die because it was turning into a virus. So people would quarantine themselves at home in order to be safe. Sound familiar? I'm sure it does now. So imagine how games, this incident mirrored the real world. There was panic and chaos, right? A lot of people are too invested in games and they think, oh, I'm platinum, or I've got so much money, I can't risk it. So there was genuine panic, and chaos. Other people would get infected so that they would infect other enemies. So they would literally sacrifice themselves just for other enemies to die, which is so strange because it's just a game. Other people took to altruism and heroism. They had healing potions, healing spells, and said, I will heal you. But it didn't really help because the debuff only wore off when you're dead. So, at least they tried. Then, communication and community response. Those that quarantined would say, hey, I heard City X was infected. Friends, don't go there, right? And it's crazy to think how the reaction to an in-game virus mirrored how we reacted, and will react for in pandemics, past, present, and future. So this had a lot of interest in doctors or people who study viruses, because there was real-time analysis of human behavior in a virtual world where the costs are low and no one is hurt. And if we can model human behavior, if we have real-time analysis, we can model scenarios for better preparedness for future, be it pandemics, diseases, or any other epidemic that might happen. And it also shows us the importance of communication and information sharing, because one player discovered that the in-game characters were asymptomatic carriers of this bug or this virus. And it saved a lot of virtual lives. But if we could do that in our world and come together, the output would be amazing. So, I couldn't memorize this because it's just too long, so I'll just read it. The speedrunning community exemplifies the transformative power of creativity and collaboration. By reshaping gaming culture through shared knowledge and innovative strategies, speedrunners not only push the boundaries of what is possible within their games, but also impart valuable lessons that transcend the realm of gaming. As we reflect on these lessons, it is clear the principles of rigorous testing, community engagement, and creative problem solving championed by speedrunners can significantly enhance practices within the PyCon ecosystem and beyond. By embracing the collaborative ethos of speedrunning, we can cultivate a more innovative and resilient approach to software development, ultimately driving better outcomes for projects. Let's carry these insights forward, inspired by the speedrunning community's relentless pursuit of excellence. Thanks for listening.
Do we have any questions?
So I just wanted to know the incident in, was it World of Warcraft? Did they also have conspiracy theories when the patch came out?
Hi, Nunu. Thanks for the talk. It was super cool. Also a gamer when I'm not coding, which is a fancy way of saying I don't know what grass feels like. But I had a question. On one of your slides, you mentioned that two of the big things with speedrunning is understanding game mechanics and also the physics engine. I've seen a lot of speedrunners specifically exploit like the Unity engine behind games, and that's actually how they translate these glitches between different games. In a professional like environment, a lot of the time we use frameworks. At my company, we use Django. As developers, how do we find a balance between trying to protect our end customers from bugs within the framework versus bugs written in our own code on top of that framework? A lot of times in games, they usually just patch above where they can't actually patch stuff in Unity. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my first thought is that that's a hard question because there are a lot of moving parts and things to consider. Because in terms of, okay, let's say software development, the higher ups, they decide, okay, we want to make a certain application, we want to use this, there's cost, there's many other, there are many factors to consider. But I think the best thing we can do is to have a culture that fosters people who not only learn, but people who think beyond, money, okay, it's going to make money, or it's going to do this. We need to have a culture of let's protect our users. Let's use what's not just money making, but what's ethically right and what will protect us long term. But in general, it's a hard question because there are a lot of moving parts. But all I can give is a bit more perspective, I would say. Yeah.
Hi everybody. Thank you for your talk. That was very cool. So I'm not a gamer, just in software development. So when I understand, so you mentioned earlier that you do stress testing for game development. So I just want to understand, are there tools that you use? Is that automated to simulate the speed runners to trigger performance and test performance? And if there are testing frameworks that you use for that, what are those tools?
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. I think I misspoke actually. I was suggesting a solution, I would say, right, for the future of games, for us to do more rigorous testing, the way speedrunners play games. So essentially, it would be ideal to kind of stress test games because that's how speedrunners play games. It's a simulated stress test. In terms of tools and software, I mean, people do amazing things, right? But long term, there's something I was actually exploring where, like, if you could make an AI to play a game, right? Maybe two AIs. One could be the attacker, one could be a defender or something. Then have those AIs just like try to break the game, or in as forceful as possible. Just trying to simulate what a real speedrunner would do. So yeah.
What's your current best time in Hades?
Unfortunately, it's still 25 minutes.
That was the first question I really wanted to ask. But when you hit that local maximum, then getting back up there is really hard. The other thing was just to add to your point about AI and speedruns. There's a really cool video about a speedrunning track mania using an AI, and like actually using AI to explore. And took a few years of training to get the best track mania times on a speedrun. So if you're interested in that person in the back, that would be cool to look at and get some inspiration.
Hello. I'd like to know what's your hardest boss fight in any game? Your hardest boss fight.
I mean, the answer isn't as impressive as you think. I did play the Souls series, and I gave up really early on. So I don't think it was a boss or anything. It was just like one of those free roaming creatures and all. So yeah, but to me it was as hard as a boss fight. Yeah.
So my actual question, value of community. Who in your speedrunning journey or game playing journey has been the most valuable community member to you? Like, where have you found someone valuable? Just like tell us that story.
I wish there was a story behind it, like to say, oh, this person, they helped me, but it's usually the Reddit community. So it's going to be you / some random characters. Yeah. I find that like I don't know if it's gamers or on Reddit, when you ask something specific and you ask it well enough, a lot of people will answer you without making you feel dumb, right? Which is something I encountered a lot. When I first started beat software development or just playing games, I ask a question, and after asking the question, I feel so dumb because the people are not answering me, but like they're explaining why my question is dumb, But live and learn the hard way, I guess. But it's just random people on Reddit, mostly Reddit, that have helped me. So yeah.
Any more questions? Right, in which case, let's thank the speaker.